my life, life. I'm just living my life.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tuepenz.
And I'm Gaplord.
And we are the Juice
Crew Villans. Huh? Okay, so I'm Gaplord, your friend extraordinaire, and today we have some special guests with us today. From my left, going to my far left, we have Miss King, Beverly King. I'm not used to calling her by her first name. We have Vannice McCoy, and we have Darrell Strong Jr.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not used to calling you Darrell Strong Jr. either. And then we have Dr. Tuepenz, of course. Today we'll be touching on some, I think it's slightly important topics. We'll be touching on mental health, and we'll be getting some input from the crowd, the huge crowd that showed up today. So we will be passing the mic if y'all have any questions, or if y'all just want to add any input to any questions we may ask or direction we're going in. So we'll just jump it off right now.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So feel free to ask as y'all, in any order y'all want to. Just make sure y'all speak into the mics. Remember, only the 2 mics on the left, and that one kind of scoot into it. So let's define mental health, and then we'll see what you guys all consider mental health personally from a subjective standpoint. So what is mental health? I wish I had this in my notes. So mental health is a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. So with that being said, I want to ask you guys, what does mental health mean to you, going from my left all the way down? Ms. King, could you?
Mental health to me is just my brain not working the way I think it should, and that's what I think it is for me.
You says your brain
Not working the way that
it should be working.
should be working.
Okay. And Vannice?
Can you provide that definition again for me?
Okay, so the textbook definition is a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being.
Yeah, I guess mine's just piggybacks on the statement or on the definition. For me, I would say my mental health is more so just me being like mentally fit, mentally whole, so to speak. I would say, psychologically aware of my body, listening to my body, the cues that it gives me, the things that I can hear, like the warnings and stuff like that. That's what I would say, like mental health. When I can actually tap into the warning signs, me taking the time to listen to my body, I feel like that's when I'm like the most mental. That's when I'm the most healthy in my mental state of mind.
Okay. So keep in mind, we're not famous enough to get canceled yet. So yeah. So Earl.
I think mental health for me is when I have positive and productive behaviors. Where I'm either, I define that by either it's allowing me to make money or maintain my health. Where I'm not thinking about things and behaving in a destructive manner. Is positive and productive.
Yeah. Goes both ways.
Exactly. Exactly.
What about you, Dr. Tuepenz?
Man, I just like all the answers everybody gave, but I definitely would kind of say, definitely dealing with mental fitness, how fit you are mentally to take on the daily challenges that come along. And I was thinking about that just because of basketball. I always say the way you play basketball is probably the way you'd be in your regular life. So.
Yeah, that's something you say often.
But it's real. It's real. We put it to the test.
Yeah.
And that's short-term memory.
Exactly.
You got a turnover.
I'm over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That quick.
Or somebody might break down. So they mess up in life. They break down, start tripping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you all this. Y'all can answer in any order you want. Is mental health overly diagnosed today?
I would say it could be both. It could be overly diagnosed and not diagnosed enough. You know, somebody may be mentally ill, but you know, they may say it's something else. It's not mental illness because you can't see it. You know, they don't have a broken arm. You can see a broken arm or a broken leg.
It's not tangible. Yeah.
So I think it could be both.
So y'all remember this question because I have something that relates back to this later. So I asked this for a reason. So go ahead. Just keep that in mind.
All right. So you're asking us, is mental health overly diagnosed?
Yeah.
I would say, from my personal opinion, I don't think that it's overly diagnosed. I think that there is an increased awareness around mental health right now, which is why it might seem like it's overly. But I think that's just, it's an imbalance whenever we compare it to how we weren't necessarily paying attention to our mental health back in the day, opposed to now. It's like, oh my gosh, everyone's like worried about it, or everyone's thinking about it, everyone's speaking about it more so. But I would think that I don't say that it's overly diagnosed. And I would also, you know, piggyback on what Ms. King was saying, it would probably be more so underdiagnosed or more so misdiagnosed, more so now. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
I don't want it to sound like dismissive, but I would kind of reframe that like how you asked, you know, is it overly diagnosed? And I'm thinking about, you know, as it relates to our community, I think it's overly accepted. You know, I think there are some very traumatic situations that happen in our lives, but then I also think there are some situations that if we apply enough grit and enough thinking outside the box and applying logic to some situations, there are some things that we can overcome. You know, I was just driving back from homecoming, you know, and if you went to Langston University, you've experienced some definite struggles trying to obtain a degree. A lot. You know, we talk about that retention rate as freshmen. It's easy to drop out.
So do you know the average, so I worked at Langston also. Do you know the average graduation time for a normal student is?
I would assume 5 to 6 years.
It's 7 years.
7.
Yeah.
I am not surprised.
But Langston also accepts the
Exactly.
kids who, you know, typically wouldn't be going to college. But I was working there and I kind of looked at that. I was like, wow, that's kind of insane. 7 years is and you know, people used to complain about not getting their refund checks on time. Then the reason why they don't get their refund checks in a timely manner is because they gave kids extra time to drop their classes.
Oh, wow.
Oh my.
To drop.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at most schools, you don't have the extra time to drop your class.
Right.
Just a little fun facts.
That's homecoming.
Yeah.
Definitely. Right. That's LU Unplugged.
So, Dr. Tuepenz, what about you?
Well, I'm gonna say I think it's overly diagnosed because money. You know, piggybacking off what Vannice said, get people thinking about it, get people worrying about it. If you know anything about business, we know marketing is built off emotional marketing. You tap into the fear of the people, and you can make money off of it. So, yeah, I'm gonna say it's people is overdiagnosing it for money. People are saying I got something wrong with me because you know, it's cool to have something wrong with you. Now everybody's, like he said, they're over accepting of it, and because of that, people are finding a way to manipulate it for money.
I can add to that, and all of this is anecdotal experience because I worked in the social work field and I worked in the group homes. I'm sure some of y'all out there can relate, but yeah. So I've seen the effects of. I know the money that comes in from putting kids in the system and just throwing them on medicines, and not giving them an opportunity to overcome these traumas that they had in their life. So, and the medicine kind of just masks the situation, and so they never overcome. And it's like we raking in the money. So I can kind of agree with that. But these are all great answers to segue into my next question. So those amazing questions, answers, everybody.
Hey, Shelby.
Yes.
Real quick. So before you go to the next question, I wanted to speak to the whole, you know, overly diagnosed insofar as the money that comes with that. I definitely get that and I understand it. My thing with it is, are we questioning the overly diagnosis of this because now black people have more awareness and more acceptance? Because you got to think about it. White people you know what I'm saying, spending money on mental health. this is kind of a little bit more newly accepted for us within our community?
Well, that's actually a great question, and let me just speak to that personally. So I think the black people of like the 40s and 50s and 30s, I think they were stronger than we are today. I think they overcame obstacles and situations that we can never imagine, and I think they have a more stronger mindset and mentality. And I think sometimes it can be overdiagnosed and overlooked because I don't want to go too deep into because some of the stuff is
okay.
yeah.
My bad.
So, but in general, I do think we can be stronger in our mindset, and just because white people do it, don't mean it's normal for us. Like I remember my mom telling me, it's like she's like, yeah, like all bad stuff that we have become accustomed to, like, and made it our culture. Like twerking is not a great thing. I don't know why y'all. I wouldn't say y'all, but a lot of people kind of look at twerking like, oh, this is just part of our culture. But twerking is not a good thing for our culture. But my mom used to be like, yeah, back in the day, like we wouldn't be called dad doing things like that. Like my mom.
She recalled your dad doing something?
No, my mom said she wouldn't be. Black people wouldn't be called. Black people would not be called dad doing things like that. She'd be like, that's something that white people would like to do, or.
You know what? I can buy
So that's also a moral thing also. So I don't know. But anyways, you kind of jumped into the
my bad.
fridge.
You know why?
Why?
We didn't, because we get our butt told up. We get a spanking, we get a whooping.
And I just feel like black people of that like the 40s, 50s, 30s, I feel like we have more morals. And one of my favorite people in history, I speak about all the time, is Booker T. Washington. He's one of the greatest black men who ever lived. He grew up in slavery. He didn't complain about no white people ever in his life. White people actually helped him out also, but that's another story. But he never complained. He started a college back in the time where people said they ain't had no opportunity. So
Okay.
yeah, if y'all ain't read Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington, it's an amazing book. But let's go and jump forward.
All right.
That was a good question, though. So I would like to ask everybody my next question. Where does mental health stem from? Your personal opinion, where does it stem from? Like, you're not born with mental health issues, so where does it stem from?
I could say mine, I was born into trauma. My mother.
Into it.
Yeah.
But
my
you
mother was-
you didn't come out the womb like I got all these, like, you born into it, but it's not like while you're in the womb, you don't have mental health issues. But when you're born into a situation, do you feel like you have issues within the womb of your mother?
Yeah, I feel like, it was inherited. I've been told that it can be inherited,
Like passed down?
passed down. My mom had a baby at 14 years old and was sent away, so she was suffered from depression at an early age. So if you're pregnant with a child, the baby can feel,
What you
all
can do it with.
your hormones and stuff. So, I feel like I had a good life growing up till I was 5, and then my mom abandoned us. So when I turned 29, that's when I had a mental breakdown. And I was told that I had been depressed and had anxiety since the age of 5. So I didn't know, and the lady said, well, even babies can be depressed.
That's it.
Lack of love and affection. So from
And
my
you didn't
standpoint,
recognize it until 29.
till I was 29, I thought feeling depressed, I didn't have nothing to compare it to.
You just thought it was normal.
I thought it was normal. And when I turned 27, I was like, I started saying something ain't right. I only had one good week out of the month. I thought it was PMS. And when I called Red Rock, and they would make an appointment for me, and I'm like, no, I'll come, but I never did go. I just kept putting it off, and the lady said, no, PMS don't last for 3 weeks out of the month. Something's not right.
What about you, V Nice?
I'd agree. I feel like for me personally, though, it stemmed from, life circumstances. I would say trauma. A lot of time, trauma induced. So for me, like I've went through like domestic violence. I had a domestic violence marriage. I left that but I also went through, workplace discrimination, and that was going on at the same time. And so, that was a difficult, time for me, but I feel like that's where a lot of my mental health issues had like stemmed from. However, piggybacking on what Mrs. King had stated, the older that you get, the more that I feel like the more that you start like really sitting down and like learning yourself, and putting pieces of the puzzle together, the more you start like kind of pay attention and looking back in hindsight about some of the things you growing up. So I pay a little bit more attention to my parents now and ask them a lot of different questions. And and even my grandma before she passed away. So honestly, some of it did stem from my parents as well. Like my dad, he lost his mom at the age of 6, and then he lost his dad at the age of 16. He was a junior in high school. And so, that's kind of dealing with like some rejection and, having to go through like some things like that. And so if you don't heal that at whatever time, then you are going to pass that down to the, not necessarily purposely, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
so,
unintentional.
yeah, so that was like from my dad and then also from my mom. My mom also had neglect from her dad. My grandpa had neglected my grandma and, my uncles and my mom. And so, they deal with like some different, anxiety and trust issues and stuff like that. So it was my own personal, but it can make it a little bit more difficult for you to handle the circumstances when you are presented with those in life, because you already have that chemical imbalance, so to speak, within you. Because when a woman is pregnant, she's sending those particular things, and that's another reason why I refused to have, I had refused when I was married at the time or whatever to have kids. So I was like, this is gonna be an effed up environment for that, you know what I'm saying, for the baby. I was like, I can't do that shit.
No, you're fine. I'm like, Vannice out here cursing. Oh Lord. Yeah, amazing. So, Darrell, what about you?
I kind of want to build on the first and the response before. And I was thinking about the question. At first, it was one of those situations of, you experience it, or you realize that you're experiencing it after the fact. Like, oh, I'm depressed, or oh, I'm in this situation.
Yeah.
And then you start to figure out that it's your ability or, you're not being able to cope with. And when I say cope, I mean figure out a way to, navigate those conditions and constraints. And that does come from, your experience as a child, starting in the womb. We learn off of our mother's emotions, as we're inside of her, and them, a lot of us in our community, being born out of inconvenient situations.
Yeah.
That's them not having the ability to cope with their stressors and their environments. And that's something that we feel and we're born into. And so as we grow up, we are constantly dealing with or under the protection and care and provision of adults, parents, caregivers, everything in between, who are struggling to cope with their everyday life. And so we grow up lacking those skills.
Skills, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those, situations. It's a mountain turned into a molehill.
See, I knew y'all was perfect for this. What about you, Dr. Tuepenz?
Man, everybody has such, eloquent answers. I guess mental health, how I see it, I kind of see mental health like,
Where does it stem from?
Oh, where does it stem from? I guess it's something you're born with. I kind of think of it like when you start the game, the Ninja Turtles game. You remember that game back in the day? You play Ninja Turtle game. You start off, you got this much energy. Then you get hit by a foot soldier, you lose it. Then you get you some pizza, and you get more energy. It's just kind of like an up and down thing. You're born with this much mental health. You got this much strength, but then this happens. That's trauma. So it sets you back a little bit on your mental health. Then this happens, and that's trauma. To set you back a little bit, but then you learn to cope with that. Then you get through that trauma. Now you're getting your health back. That's you getting the peaks and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how I see it, like the little energy thing at the top of the screen.
Amazing. So my short answer to that is I agree with all y'all. I feel like all mental health stems from trauma. And although, like I said, anecdotal experience, working in group homes, working with kids for so long, every kid that had major issues, it reflected his trauma, and it was almost identical. So even myself personally, it's like and like y'all said, like your parents don't know that they're putting this trauma on you, and then you're passing it down. It's whenever you identify is when it cuts off. So and once you identify, you need to come up with a solution. So let's move on to this next question. Y'all doing a really great job. I'm proud of y'all. So are you in control of your mental health?
Ooh, what a question.
Yeah, I get a little woke sometimes.
Not always. Not always. It's like I said, I think it was a little bit prior to the pandemic, I found myself, like I gained a lot of weight. I think in my heaviest, I was like 395. But right. But I look at myself in the mirror every day, so I don't really notice changes.
Yeah.
You know, I notice that I need a haircut. You know, it's Friday, I got to get out. I notice those surface level things, but you know, you don't notice how that impacts, you know, your drive in certain, you know, at work.
Yeah.
You know, especially in the work that I do, you know, it's driven off of passion and a sincere care, you know, for people. And when you feel that not present, you don't realize it until, you know, somebody pull you to the side, like, you know, hey, it's been about, you know, 2 months. What's going on?
You gonna cut your hair, bro?
Right. You gonna cut your hair? You know, the suit is a little tight today.
Yeah.
And those are things you don't realize until it happens. You know, so I would like to say that I'm 100% in control of my mental health, but, you know, we're not. Which is why we're having that conversation, so we can, you know, develop strategies together.
Mm-hmm. We're all about solutions here.
Exactly.
So it's open mic for anybody.
No, I say, man, you know, you are, but then sometimes you can lose it. You know, it's like basketball. You had a basketball, you dribbling it 1 minute, and then you know what happened? You lost it. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it just be like that. Sometimes it just happens like that. Sometimes you lose it, you know? You might kick it off your foot. So we can control it. I think the main thing we can control is how we respond to everything. I think if we're more aware of what we can control, then I think we put more focus on that. I think what a lot of us get caught up in is trying to control the situation. Like every part of it is, you can't control every part of it. All you can control is how you respond to what's happening. You know what I mean? So I think if we focus more on that, that's a solution, by the way. I just threw that in there on the back end. But yeah.
What about you, ladies?
I was diagnosed with a chemical imbalance and depression and anxiety, so I had to be put on medication. Now, I've been on medication since I was 29. I'm 58 now. I was put on a real good medication to where it wouldn't let me cry, wouldn't let me get depressed, and I'm like, something ain't right. You gotta cry sometime, but it had me able to function in life. And I'm gonna say about 3 months ago, after 14 years, it stopped working. It just stopped working. And I'm like, you know, what's going on? Why is this medicine not working? But not realizing too, I had a death. My sister passed away. So I thought I was okay. I mean, I know I was sad or whatever, but I thought I was okay. But when it stopped working, I did lose control. I started stuttering real bad, having real bad anxiety. I mean, stuttering when I talked, I was just, my anxiety was out of control. So I had to, you know, get that in check. I had to. So sometimes you are in control of it, but you know, we're human. So sometimes we are gonna go, you know, left field or go off.
Yeah. And to add to that, everybody's trauma is different also. So your trauma doesn't look like mine, yours doesn't look like mine. Y'all's don't look the same. And everybody handles it differently. I have brothers, we grew up in the same household, but we all have different paths.
Right.
I have a brother who went to Ivy League. I have a brother in prison, and it's me in the middle. So, be nice. What do you think?
I would say that it depends, you know. Yeah, we do have control of our mental health. If you are looking at it from an intrinsic perspective, like, you know, Drew was stating. But I think that depending on like what the trauma was, you know, like you were saying that it's subjective, depending on what the trauma was and more so I would say how long you were in that trauma. That has an impact on really whether or not you are in control of the mental health. So I'll use myself for an example, so expound upon that. For me, like I stated, I was married. So I was, I'm originally from Oklahoma City, and I'm married and I'm in DC. So I pretty much don't have like anyone up there or whatever, like that was just my ex's, family. So I'm not around like my family. I'm going through, this discrimination, within like the workplace as well. And then, it was the trauma or the domestic violence was physical, but it was emotional, it was financial, it was spiritual, just like all of that, And so I had ended up putting myself into counseling because initially I thought that it was just, the workplace, issues. And then I realized like, oh, some of the shit that I got going on, like at, at home. I was, brought up like in church, so I was kind of sort of suppressing it through like prayer, so to speak, and not really. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pray through this or whatever and stuff like that. And it wasn't, even though I had put myself into the counseling. Honestly, it wasn't until like I had left physically. It wasn't until I had physically left the relationship, as well as that work environment that I was formerly in, that my body started having like a lot of panic attacks. And so at that particular time, I did not have control over that, but I think that it was more so because my body was stuck due to the fact that I was in that marriage for like, 5 years, and the relationship was like 7, as well as the same time of the job that I was at. Your body is stuck in this fight or flight situation. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't fight and I didn't run either, you know what I'm saying? And so being stuck in there, you have like all these toxins that's just being poured into you. And so then when you finally escape, a lot of people look at like the panic attacks as negative, but I ended up like embracing them because I realized that it was my body releasing those particular like toxins, even though I was like, you could be like triggered by things as well. So
when you say accepting them, do you mean like just facing the head on?
Yeah, like not. So I used to get upset when I used to get the panic attacks. Like, man, why the fuck this shit like keep on like hell? Like for real. Like I'm sorry, y'all, but like I was like so pissed off like that I kept on having. I was like, I left. Like, why am I having these particular like things, right? But it would be like around certain times, like anniversaries, like around the anniversary when he almost choked my ass to death or whatever, the anniversary of like or like weddings. I had to like avoid weddings at one point in time. Like I cried. Because I couldn't go to
I'm sorry,
Drew's
Vanessa.
wedding.
Let's pause. I have to restart the camera because it stopped.
Oh, okay.
It just stopped though. So,
Okay.
Yeah. We ain't got the fancy cameras yet.
Okay. So yeah, I was saying like I had to really start paying attention to the things that like triggered me. I had to start avoiding weddings like at one point in time as well because I would start getting like emotional and crying and like having those particular panic attacks. So I think sometimes we're in control and sometimes we're not. But most importantly, that I think it depends on how long you're really embedded in that traumatic situation.
Okay, that's amazing. So I like to add my 2 cents. Definitely, I feel like we do have some control over our mental health, but at the same time, I do understand some things you can't even recognize to have control. Mm-hmm. But speaking on my personal experience, I have complete control over my mental health right now. I wouldn't say that 5 or 10 years ago, though.
Right on.
So I can say right now, I don't get bothered by much. Like no one can call me a word and make me upset. I'm just like, okay, I'm a bitch. What is, okay, it's just a word to me. Like things that my parents may have made mistakes on, I forgave them for everything. And I think that's the biggest thing that everyone needs to do. I think forgiveness. Anybody who has caused harm or trauma to you, or I don't care how bad the trauma was, like I feel like we all should forgive them. But that's just my 2 cents. I'm a believer in the Lord, though. So, So one of my next questions is, does mental health excuse poor behavior?
No, it does not excuse poor behavior.
No, not at all.
I feel like, so there's a difference between understanding, and I think this is where we get it confused. There's a difference between understanding and I guess, you know, like you say, like making an excuse for it. Like I understand what it, you know, the struggles and stuff like that. Like I'll be able to help you, you know, pray with you and stuff like that. But at the same time, like I'm not going, you don't have to like accept that particular like disrespect either. Like, no, that's not an excuse. I think that people use it as an excuse, and will abuse it, you know what I'm saying? But no.
It's not. What do y'all think? Because let me add this too. No mental health is the same.
Yeah.
So I've seen, I'm speaking from anecdotal experience. I've seen some kids in a group home or in social work, and it was like, you should be able to handle this. But this other kid, I'd be like, he can't handle that.
Mm.
Because
So you make a
he
justification.
handled that trauma differently than that kid did. And I can't say how they should handle it because obviously it's subjective.
Yeah.
So let me add that.
I think if we accept that everyone has a certain level of control over their mental health, and I think there's some space to where we have to apply understanding to certain behaviors. I think about, we think about kids. When I was a kid, the stuff they were putting in medicine, that impacts your behavior in ways that you can't control.
And food.
Right, and food. Exactly. The first time I learned how important sugar was to kids, it's like crack. I was at the State Fair, Oklahoma, and I gave my daughter one of those lime freezes, whatever. It was like her eyes glazed over instantly. It's like, this is like a drug.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I started removing sugar.
Sugar, yeah. And I heard they say the same thing about red dyes, but I'm no scientist. But yeah, that's interesting. Kids definitely have reactions to like sugars and things. Anybody else have input on that?
I repeat the question again.
Okay. Does mental health excuse poor behavior?
Okay. I'd say no, because I've had to work on my behavior. Now, my mom left 4 kids. I don't drink. I didn't get on drugs, but some of my siblings did get on drugs, alcohol. Another one had other addictions. But I chose to go a different way. And when those addictions cause them to harm themselves or to harm me, I would say that's no excuse just because you doing drugs because mom left us or whatever, and you're an adult now. You need to do better. But I had to come to the conclusion with one of my siblings, and I had to accept whatever came with her trauma.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't gonna change. She was, she was
Stuck
just
in that pattern.
damaged.
Yeah.
That was it. So I had to grow to love her. Okay, I don't care if you gonna be on drugs. If this how you gonna die, then I'm gonna be right there, with you. So I did give her a pass because I love my sister. I loved her. I miss her so much.
I don't think that's necessarily giving them a pass. You can still forgive somebody and love them,
Yeah.
but also recognizing that they have trauma and issues that they need to. You can come in that they have trauma and issues that they need to overcome. So that's not necessarily giving them a pass. It's like I have a brother who does those same things. I love him. He can't be around my kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love you from afar. Like, we can do certain things together, but we can't do these things together. So I feel like we can still recognize that these things need to be worked on, and you're overcoming trauma still. But it's not like I don't love you still. Me personally, I love everybody. So even I don't know y'all, I love y'all still. But
She asked me. She would say, "Will you just love me? Just love." She wanted me to love her the way she was. And this is the way I am, and
So
that's what I did.
that's a good, so off that question specifically, what do you think love is? Is it, because to me, love can be harsh sometimes. So what do you think love is?
To me, it should be unconditional.
Love is only unconditional to me.
And the love is forgiving,
Yeah.
showing kindness, truthfulness.
Is truth always kind?
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not. Not at all.
What about y'all?
For
What?
me, it's pretty cut and dry as far as love is having care and concern for someone.
Caring and concern?
Care and concern. You know, how are you? If there's somewhere that I can, provide aid, then I will. I'm gonna check on you. Do my best to, consider you. As I go about my own life. Anything, outside of that is pretty much extra. Because people get to a point where, for a lot of people, loyalty has an expiration date.
Child.
So it's not one of those things. I don't expect you to be loyal or whatever for forever.
So do you think
Because
that,
your interests change, your priorities change, and our priorities might not align.
do you think that's normal or should be normal?
I think it should be normal.
Okay.
I think, in regards to mental health, I think when you have an expectation for someone to stay the same, for an extended period of time, it's causing you harm because that person is going to change or do whatever they do outside of you. You can't control how they develop or not develop.
Well, we shouldn't have any I agree with
Right.
that. We shouldn't have any expectations of anybody.
Right.
But be nice.
I'm gonna piggyback on what it is that you said. I used to, more so subscribe to, unconditional love, but I think that honestly, the unconditional love or the teaching of that, so to speak, is what kept me embedded into, that domestic violence relationship that I was in. Because I was trying to continue to practice unconditional love and just be there and pray through it and stuff like that. And I'm like, unconditional love, you can fuck yourself over by being unconditional, showing unconditional love to people, and you're being disloyal to yourself. So I can still have some care and concern, but I'm not supposed to be unconditional. My love comes with conditions.
Well, that's interesting. I think most people loves come with conditions. Mine's don't. I love unconditionally. I can only speak for myself though. But I think that I think true love is only unconditional. So I think that you can also love somebody and if they're doing you wrong, that don't mean you have to put up with that mess. You know what I'm saying? Or if they're treating you bad or mishandling what you're doing, you don't have to put up with the mess and you can still love them. You can be like, okay, this doesn't work for me. You're abusive. What do they say, not toxic? Yeah, whatever it is, whatever the situation is, it's like you don't have to put up with it, but like I can still love you. Like for example, I can use my little brother. It's like me and him, we butt heads every time we talk, and it's like I don't live that type of life. I don't know that pimp jive talk. I don't know none of that. Like it's like, but I love you, but we just can't be around each other. It just doesn't make sense for my life what direction I'm going in. And I feel like we can love people while having, like I said, I don't know everybody. I love everybody here though. Like I wish everybody the best, and I think love is just truth, and like wishing everybody the best. But I do feel like most people have conditions on love, but I don't think that's actually true love, personally. What about you, Dr. Tuepenz?
I feel like I haven't said nothing in a minute. I would say love is respect. In terms of, and also piggybacking off what everybody else said, being unconditional. Respect can be unconditional. I have so much respect for people that if somebody walked up to me and insulted me with the words, I wouldn't smack them in their face. You know what I'm saying? That's love. For me not to, slap the shit out of you for being disrespectful.
It sounds like restraint.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But it's a certain level of respect. Like, we make jokes on each other, some of the harshest jokes. Tez has called me a bitch over the past couple of days, 3 or 4 times, and a few responses via text. Exactly. You see what I'm saying? Because it's a level of respect that you have for somebody might, outside of him might try to do the same thing, and I have that same love for them that I don't just right across the side of the face.
Yeah, I apologize.
That don't matter. You don't have that kind of time in the streets. In the streets, when you're in the streets, it's about your reputation. And you got
Okay.
to
If,
react.
if y'all didn't hear, because he ain't on the mic, but he asked, did he apologize?
It don't matter.
Yeah,
But I'm just
so-
saying, though, yeah, that's what I see love as being. Unconditional love is respect, loving your neighbor like you love yourself.
Amazing. So we will also open the floor up for everybody with questions. So towards the end, I'll let y'all know when it's time. And if y'all want to ask some questions, just raise your hand. We'll bring the mic over. Okay. Y'all all have some amazing responses. I feel like we all can kind of pick up on something and learn something because I don't know nothing, so I'm open to learning something from everybody. Should we rely on tangible outside sources to conquer mental health issues?
Hold on, ask that one more time.
Should we rely on tangible outside sources to conquer mental health issues?
I'm gonna say no, because at the end of the day, if you didn't have those resources, you won't be able to get through it. I want to piggyback off what Miss Beverly had said earlier. I used to take pills when I was in college.
Miss King.
Oh, she told me to call her Miss Beverly.
Oh.
That was a conversation we had over here.
Okay.
That's still cool?
Yeah.
Okay. But no, I was taking, I think it was Lexapro. And like she said, it take away everything. You don't cry, you don't feel nothing. And I came off of it, I was just like, goodness gracious. I didn't know what to do. And so for me, and everybody has their own personal journey. So I say we shouldn't rely on the resources, but what I learned from it, I said, God, if I can't get through this with God, to having faith in God, then I'm just gonna die from it. And I just kind of made that decision that day. But again, if it wasn't the pills kind of masking it for me and seeing that I had to go inside myself to overcome this, then I don't think I would ever probably caught it like that. So it is different things you can take from using those resources, but I don't think we should rely on it because at the end of the day, like if The Walking Dead, a zombie apocalypse happened, what we gonna do, You never know. So you never know when those resources might run out. You never know what might happen, and the best resource you have is inside of you.
What about y'all?
Beautiful.
Yeah, I have a chemical imbalance, and my doctor told me if you out on a desert island somewhere by yourself, you better take your medicine with you. The house is on fire, forget the kids and her, get your medicine, because I have tried to function without it. Like I said, I was 29 when I was diagnosed, and I didn't realize that it takes 3 to 6 weeks for the medication to get into your system. And so after that 3 to 6 weeks, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling good. I'm like, oh, I'm back to myself. I'm feeling good. I don't need this medication. I stopped taking the medicine and crash. And I go to my doctor, you been taking your medication? No, I don't need it. I have to get back on it. And it took me years to finally realize, I need this outside source. I have a chemical imbalance. And just like somebody with high blood pressure, have to take medicine for high blood pressure. You got diabetes, you got to take insulin.
Let me add to that. They can also change their diet.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the resources. I wasn't taught. I didn't get that opportunity to, but because my experiences was when I would get off the medication. Just like I was saying earlier, I don't know why this medication that I was taking, it just stopped working, and I just crashed. I was taking it, so I guess my body had got used to it after all them years. So
Yeah.
I just want to try to fill in the gap, if I can, Gaplord.
Go ahead.
I think
And they call me Gap because I have a Gap.
I think it's about knowing how to use your resources. If there's something that you can't find inside of you, they're not a part of, being a knowledgeable individual. Is knowing when you need to use things outside of you and access those resources. So I think a strategy is learning how to access, first locate those resources and then know how to access them. If that opportunity presents itself, because you have a limited capacity in things. I'm an expert in a certain number of fields and topics.
Yeah.
I'm not a kinesiologist.
Yeah.
I know how the body moves, but I can't tell you, the nuts and bolts of kinesiology. So that's one thing that you have to be able to do is learn who does have that knowledge and learn how to, access it from them. or extract that from them.
And to add to that, that's even after you have to recognize it first. So you might not even know till you're 40. Some people recognize it earlier, some people recognize it later.
Right.
So just to add to that little comment you said.
Can you repeat that question? I want to make sure I answer this question correctly.
Okay.
Should we use it, or what was that?
Should we
question?
rely on tangible outside
Rely.
sources to conquer our mental health issues?
I'm conflicted. I'm very much conflicted with that.
And again, there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I think like in the past, I would have just been like a flat out like no, you know. I also had like a really bad car accident, right? And so my L5S1 disc got herniated really bad. So
L5,
my
L5,
bad. So my lumbar 5, and then my okay, all right.
Your spine.
Yeah, my spine.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't know it until you do.
Yeah, you know. So my spine is not in alignment, basically. Okay. So in my lower back. And so with it was like so much pain. So, you know, aggravating, like I couldn't sit down for a long time, or like 5 minutes. I couldn't stand up for 5 minutes or whatever. I lost like the ability to walk for a little bit or whatever as well for like about a good like 9 months. Even like some of the medication that my doctor was prescribing to me wasn't necessarily working, you know, for my particular pain. Or if it did, then it might have like helped me up and then made me more frustrated and stuff like that because I wasn't getting sleep. And then it, you know, gave me like massive headaches and migraines or whatever. One of our classmates, Franco, shout out to her, she had, me and her, we had like reconnected, and she had introduced me to essential oils. And so, you know, so I did like some studying and some reading up on it myself. And there was like this description, I can't remember exactly where it is, but there's a scripture in the Bible where it said that, you know, if any of you are sick, then go to the elders and have them lay hands upon you with oils, right? And so with that, with the oils, the oils are derived from plants, right? Mm-hmm. And so with the oils being derived from the plants, there are specific plants that are for specific things. You know, you would use like peppermint for pain. You would use like lavender for like sleep. And those are just some basic examples or whatever, right? And so when I started like, you know, using those and they were like helping, I was like, well, and they can also help with different like mental health or whatever issues as well. And so with that, when I started using it, that's when the conflict came. So I said, well, shoot, this is a plant, this is a natural substance. Then how is what I'm doing with these essential oils different from anyone else that is using marijuana?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so for that reason, that's why I feel like I'm like conflicted, or any other, you know what I'm saying, drug, you know, so to speak. Because that one is a natural whatever substance as well now. You know, no shade to anybody, that stuff stank to me. But, you know what I'm saying, and there's some essential oils that stink too. Yeah, for that reason, I'm conflicted. But going back to the word that you use though is rely. I don't think that we should necessarily rely on it, like be dependent upon that for my mental health, so to speak. I do understand that there are different extremities though.
Yeah, I agree. That was the key word, rely.
Yeah.
See how I slipped that in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, even myself, I relied on outside substances at one point in my life to handle tough situations in my life. But I found it only got me deeper in the hole in what I was dealing with. But when I finally stopped and just looked in the mirror, took accountability, and faced my situations head on, it worked best for me. I can't say what works best for other people, but my life has been amazing since I stopped making excuses and looking in the mirror, facing things that was obstacles for me, and realizing even like things that my parents may have, trauma they have brought upon me has been caused from their parents. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, they didn't even know no better. They thought this was normal.
Yeah.
And even like raising my kids, it's like, well, hold on, let me catch myself. That's not normal. Let me bring it back a little bit. I'm sorry. So I think it's a lot of accountability and realizing, you know, and like I said earlier, not everybody realizes at the same time. You can end up being 60, 70 years old and still thinking in that same way.
Yeah.
And it's technically not really even your fault because that's how you was brought up. But I don't feel like we should ever, me personally now, I feel like, I think it's best not to rely on outside substances.
Yeah.
But I do agree. Y'all make valid points at the same time. So these are my funny questions, but they're also some very good ones. Let me start with the light ones. So is gang violence a result of mental health issues?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it kind of is. I mean, it's a response to trauma. I mean, yeah, people shoot people in the middle of the day. I think you
So-
might be traumatized, but you done blocked out the reality that this is it's a neighborhood.
So are you saying like Nipsey Hussle had mental health issues?
Possibly, I don't know him personally, so
I'm just saying just by him being in the gang.
yeah, somewhat trauma from not feeling wanted at home could force young boys to join a neighborhood gang.
Yeah. Think
Around
about what you
bunch of young
say.
men.
Yeah. My favorite rapper.
No, I said it
No,
like,
no.
you know, I'm just saying. Yeah.
So what do y'all think?
I don't think I would say it's a result of mental health. I mean, because it's kind of like, when we talk about different kind of languages and things in Africa, those places in Africa don't necessarily call them by those things. Here, when you look at a gang, everybody's calling it a gang now, but what it is an attempt to create community, or at least to be a part of one.
Okay, so this is outside of the mental health question, but have you ever seen a positive gang in the United States?
So what is a gang?
I'm talking the gangs I'm speaking about: the Crips, the Bloods, the GDs, the folks.
So community restoration in progress. The goal of that is to protect one's community. Is that a bad thing?
That hasn't been the result of it.
Has it not?
No.
Now, I would say this. I don't think that protection, as far as that community versus those who are coming in, which is why we have gentrification, I don't think that protection element has gone to where it needs to go, because a lot of the conflict is within that particular community. But if that enforcement on that end was taken to the appropriate level, I don't think you would see gentrification happen in those communities.
So I think that I think it's important. That's why I think it's important for a father to be in the home. But I think the father's in charge of protecting the home. It shouldn't be no outside sources. It should be the dad. Like I'm willing to lay my life down on the line for my family. So with that being said, I don't need a gang to protect me. And in my community where I grew up, gangs have caused nothing but chaos in my neighborhood.
What's that movie that was just out about the lady that was passing? It was a Tyler Perry movie.
Man.
Well, there's this Tyler Perry movie that's out about this lady that was passing.
Yeah.
And there's a point in the movie where, it's found out that, her black lover, they have reconnected. He immediately posse'd up every white man in the town, went to go find him and kill him, hang him.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where that's a part of one of the issues that contribute to males' challenges with mental health as it relates to black males. We try to do this all alone. And when we look on the other side, not that I'm even trying to attain the same thing as them in that perspective, but when you look at how they approach situations, they don't approach them individually. You see what I'm saying? And because they don't approach those things individually, they are in a different position,
Yeah.
as opposed to us taking everything on by ourselves.
Let me ask this real quick. Do you think gangs do a good job of taking care of the neighborhood?
No, not now.
I get
Because
what
there's
you're saying.
gentrification.
Yeah.
And when we think about those kind of neighborhoods, they're just where people live. It doesn't happen all the time. Bad things happen, at higher rates in those particular environments. But it's one of those, there are people trying to figure out how to make it through everyday life, like everybody else. But because of, several things primarily related to education and what they get in certain education environments, that population is the one that's most often, taken advantage of and seen as an opportunity for others. And that's one of those things that it does supersede their ability, but if they apply the appropriate force, I don't think what's happening will happen now.
Amazing. So what about you, V Nice or Miss King? Is gang violence a mental health issue?
Is it a mental health issue? I thought
Yeah.
I thought initially you said was it the cause? Was gang violence a cause of mental health?
No, my paper says is gang violence
Oh,
a
my
mental
bad.
health issue.
I'm glad you repeated that. I had a whole nother difference.
No. Is it a mental health issue? And again, I also think as mental health as trauma induced. So I feel like any mental health issue has been caused by trauma. So the question really should be, is gang violence a result of trauma? But I also think that mental health is a result of trauma. So
is gang violence, say it again for me.
a result of mental health issues. And again, gang violence.
Because it is some camaraderie there. It is. So you can learn some things from gang culture. I've learned a lot.
Not me, but let's be nice. I can't learn nothing from it. But
I think that it can be. I was going off or listening to what it was that both of you guys were saying. It was for like the protection, but then, you're making the statement that, you believe that the man is there for the protection, right? And, I can accept that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, why isn't the man there for the protection? You know what I'm saying?
That's a
Like the
different
man got removed. Within our communities, the man got removed, has been stripped away from the black family. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, yeah, that's beautiful, for you, might be beautiful for me as well, because my dad was in the household, but, what about for those particular individuals that didn't have, that their father got stripped from them?
But isn't that like traumatic?
It's traumatic, but was that the gang that was the traumatic?
No,
I think that the gang,
upbringing.
the upbringing is traumatic, yeah. But I think that that's more of a correlation than like a cause.
Okay.
Like the gang violence was more so like the correlation, like that happened more so like at the same time, but the actual cause of it was the removal of the men from the household.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, if there's trauma in the household, if there's an absentee father, they live in a poor community, and a child is looking for something that they're not getting in the home, they may go out in the streets looking for that, or anger, or they may become bullying. I don't know if you're gonna talk about that, but they may become bullies at school because of the trauma.
And we can definitely touch on bullying. I think bullying is good and bad. I think it's bittersweet.
It's good and bad.
Yeah, it's good and bad.
Expound.
I would never tell my kids to bully, but I'm happy I got bullied for a short amount of time in my life that I did. It taught me how to handle adverse situations. But there's levels to bullying where it's like, you just need to stop. This is extreme. But I think like simple bullying, like, a little pushing.
Amongst friends,
Yeah.
rough them up a little bit.
It's like
It's soft.
a little name calling. I don't think it's too bad. I do think it builds a little character. Even people saying jokes to people, it's like, them are just words. Those shouldn't affect you. Like I teach my kids, like words are just words. They're things that people made up and say, this means that. Like, who decided that the B word means the B word? And why did they say it have to hurt your feelings? Like,
Well, I have it came from a magical book locked away by the ancient Egyptians from the Kemet tribe, and this is all before Jesus Christ. And as a result, they had this secret book of curse words that no one could say. And once the Europeans got a hold of it, they unleashed it into the masses. That's another.
okay, he just talking. Yeah. Yeah, so
I was about to ask, what is this book? Because I need to read the book, because I am ignorant to that.
Hey, y'all was with me though. Y'all kept me going.
they like, whoa, it's deep. No, but I truly think that just a little splash of bullying is good. I think it builds a little character. I think it teaches kids how to handle adverse situations. But I do think there's a stopping point. If everybody went to life not ever getting bullied, and they just like, oh, life is supposed to be peaches and daisies, it's like when you run into those tough situations, how are you going to handle them? Like, how are you going to overcome those situations? And it's just unrealistic to think that you're going to go through life without any type of bullying. So I feel like you should face them on. You should face them head on, especially at a young age, because that's going to be the most minor bullying. When you get older, you're going to be like, oh, this is some real bullying. So, like, okay, so this is another question I have for y'all. If y'all are not aware, do y'all know who Lil Boosie is? He's really popular at Langston parties. What's up, Chris McCain? What's up? No, y'all fine. So are y'all aware with Lil Boosie? Yay or nay?
Are we who?
Are you aware with Lil Boosie?
It's homecoming week, of course.
Yeah, so everybody went to Langston. I know they're aware. So I want to ask this question in reference to mental health. So Lil Boosie once said that he paid for a grown woman to give his 12 and 13-year-old son and nephew oral sex.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Little Boosie has said on camera, like with his face on camera, and he has said he took it back after everybody gave him, but he's not lying, because I know how we can be sometimes. But he has paid for an adult woman to give his 12 and 13-year-old son and nephew oral sex.
Oh, Lord.
With that being said, if that is being true, personally, I believe it is. But would you believe that's a result of any type of mental health issues resulting in him even leading to that?
Something is off right
Yeah,
there.
quite possibly. Yeah, maybe that's something he grew up around that was normal, and so he just, hey, like my dad them showed me this, son, so let me show you too.
Yeah. It's definitely a reproduced behavior.
Yeah.
I will say that.
So is it a mental health issue?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a mental health issue. I think it might be a little bit more praised within our community for the male to, have these sexual encounters like at an early age. And so you might be passing down. Now, could that be, trauma? Could that be a mental health? I mean, it could be, but
Hold on, what community? Because we didn't preach that in my house.
well, not necessarily that it's preached in your house, but I feel like it's advertised. It's advertised within a lot of like the music or whatever to be like sex. You know what I'm saying? Like it's advertised for me to be, me as a black woman, I'm supposed to be like you was talking about twerking. I'm supposed to be twerking or whatever and stuff like that. I'm supposed to have on the shorts and all the different stuff, whatever. And so, and within those videos, you have the males that are dropping the dollars or whatever, like at the girls. What is yeah. Making
Well, they
it
got the
rain,
money
whatever.
gun now.
Yeah, I was like, what is that called? Yeah,
They got the money
making it
gun
rain,
now.
whatever. And so it's like it's they both are feeding off of each other, like so far as for that particular like attention. Not necessarily, it wasn't in my household either, but it's kind of accepted a little bit within the community though.
I think you're right. What do you think, Miss King?
Yeah, I think something definitely wrong with Lil Boosie. I think maybe something happened to him. He may have been sexually abused.
Abuse, yeah.
And sometimes when young men are sexually abused, they don't look at it as abuse. They
Yeah.
look at it as a conquest, a conquered, and they go to school and tell their little friends,
Correct.
this older
But when they get older,
Yeah.
they learn that
Yeah, it affects them.
it was abuse.
Yeah, my goal in high school was to, excuse my, I guess sex ain't a bad word, but it is kids in here, to have sex. With an adult woman. So one of my teachers, I thought she was really pretty. It's like, oh, that'll be my goal. And it was like, if I could do that.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like, but reality, that would have been like me thinking. And I even talked to an older woman. I remember my mama running her off, like, that old B word. And it's like, I'm like, Mama, you tripping, you hate. But it's like,
She hating.
yeah, and I'm looking at it as a kid, though, at the same time. I'm just like, I'm 17, that woman's like 35. And she had a kid of almost my age.
Right, I was gonna say, yeah, that's
But
Cool, good idea.
what's I think it's more criticized when it's a man as the younger age versus a woman as the younger
Right.
age. It's more acceptable when a man is the younger age. At the same time, it's the same thing. Because I have friends who mess with older women as kids, and that woman's never got in trouble, or it was never,
Yeah.
you know.
That's a toxic acceptable standard.
Yeah, it's a little odd, but I'm glad I didn't. I've been messed up even more than what I was in my youth. I'm
I'm
good
glad
now.
your mama was hating.
Oh yeah, I was. You don't know what we talking about.
Right.
That's funny. So I would like to open this next question up to the floor and the panel, of course. So I want to ask, just like, when you face mental health issues, how have you conquered it or faced it? Like, what did you do to get over it? Or did you just, admit defeat to it? Like, how did you conquer it? So I want to open up to y'all first, and then we can get some, if anybody from the floor has any input on that, we can do that as well.
I just started managing my relationships to people and to things like my food. Really just controlling that, our interactions and what I would allow or not allow.
Come through boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. Healthy boundaries. That's what I started doing.
Yeah, mine, it'll never be conquered long as we live in this system of things. We all imperfect, but like you said, I can manage it. I manage my mental health issues.
Okay. I've dealt with the mental health issues with seeking help, professional help, licensed help, counseling. I think I think it's okay to still pray through, some things as well, mixing prayer with it, mixing counseling. I've always been, prone to like writing. Writing has been very, very beneficial for me within my mental health, as well as, surrounding myself like with nature, like water and stuff like that. Yeah, those are the things that's been, the most beneficial. Yeah, right.
Nature, yeah.
Right. Yeah, those are the things that's been the most beneficial for me. But also, a lot of different personal development as well. I like this movie that I watch probably weekly, and I take something different from it on a regular basis. It's called The Secret, and it's based off of the law of attraction. And so ultimately what it is you saying things, whatever it is that you're focusing like your energy on is what it is that you're going to attract more of in your life. And so making sure that I'm aware, that I'm conscientious of what it is that I'm focusing on, whether it be within my mindset, whether it be something that I'm writing or something that I'm actually like speaking, and like altering that and changing that so the way I can manifest what it is that I truly want versus the negative. So that's something that's been very beneficial for me as well.
Amazing. What about you, Dr.
Man,
Tuepenz?
so what I had to do, I had to go down to Bob Davis. I had to get 12 crawfish, right? Then you had to get 10 oysters. Then I had to go down to Lake Hefner, and I had to get 10 seashells, right?
Right.
And so I'm just making this up.
Right.
Now, what I do now is it's this book called Atomic Habits. And it's a real cool book by James Clear. It's actually on YouTube for free. And so what the book teaches you to do is to replace that negative thinking habit or whatever that negative habit is with something positive. So one of my flaws is my road rage. I get tired of, I hate driving because I don't have to deal with everyone's problem of poor driving. So as a result, I'm like, well, damn, the light's green. Let's hit the gas. Let's do this. Let's get some money. But everybody's not living like that. And so instead of getting mad, I say, God bless you, you non-driving mother lover.
Okay.
God bless you. But I want God to bless them. And I say it and I mean it. When I say it, I mean it. So instead of cursing them, I bless them. And so that's one way I work on just replacing the negative habits with something positive. Because no matter what, like Ms. King said, we're constantly coping. It's going to happen. Something is good today, then tomorrow is going it's going to be something else. It's sunny, it's hot today, and then it was cold earlier this week, and I was like, what's going on? So that's kind of how life, like the seasons. When it's your season to be warm and free, be, but when it's time to rain, you got to deal with the pain. And if the rhyme is true.
So I can definitely say that Drew's top 5 worst drivers I've ever rode in the car with. I'm not gonna name the other 5, but yeah, I'm holding on to the I'm like pushing my imaginary brakes. Yeah, it's not the other drivers. It's definitely not the other drivers. It's like, wow, we say 30 miles per hour on this street. We're at 75.
Man, you right now.
And we're yanking on the brakes at the stoplight. So those are all great answers, obviously. Everything is by experience, like I said, anecdotal. For me personally, how I handle things, I don't like words. Like I said earlier, like words don't affect me, and that's the same way I look at issues. It's like if it's out of my control, why am I stressing over it? It's like it's a waste of my time. It's like it has no benefit to me. So why am I stressing? I'm not saying I was always like this either. At a point in my life, I was stressing over them. I was like, oh man, I got a D on my grade, whatever my issue was. And it's like I break out in hives. I didn't even know what hives was. The doctor was like, you stressing out? I was like, what the hell is stress? But like things that I can't control now, it's like why am I worried about them? It's like they're out of my control now. So it's like I just deal with them, handle them accordingly. I can do what I can do. And it's like whatever happens, happens. Like it's like I just take accountability how I got there and how I can get away from that issue. So it's like, why am I worried about things that's out of my control? That's my personal opinion. But I would like to open this question up to the floor if anybody else has some input. If not, that's fine too. You say what, Sean? No. So the question was, let me ask it. When faced with mental health issues and obstacles in your life, how did you handle it?
So I think it's like, for me, I'm from Michigan, by the way. So I grew up outside of Detroit. And I wanted to speak to that topic of gang violence, right? Mm-hmm. I think it is it's a response to trauma. I don't think it stems from trauma. I think it's just a response to trauma. But repeat the question, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're fine. When faced with any mental health issues or obstacles in your life,
right,
how do you handle them or face them?
So even with that, like mental health, you face with these issues, right? What do people do? They resort to a community. Why do we go to social media? Because we see people going through the same things that we go through. So if I can identify that, and what I do is I'm emotionally intelligent now. So I identify my emotions and I try to handle those emotions accordingly. So if I'm feeling sad, I might listen to some sad music. If my father passed, I was banging Bone Thugs and Harmony, Meet You at the Crossroads a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like I identify my emotions and then I handle them accordingly. So that may be listening to music. That may be me, I'm a videographer. That may be going to nature and recording some things. That may be me in church. I'm just going to this community. I'm going to be around things that is going to help me and help my mental health. It's what I do.
So it's pretty safe. It just differs a little, you know.
Yeah, it varies. I think it varies.
Yeah. Anybody else?
For me, it looked like finding a black therapist and setting up appointments with her and just talking out some childhood issues. It also took me reflecting and looking at the things that I was doing to cause, you know, my situation. So whether that's my diet, whether that's not exercising, whether, you know, all those types of things that aid in our mental incline or decline, you know. So that's what I chose to do, you know, when I'm going through those things. And also, like he said, you know, the black way is to play some music and just get the emotion out. So I've done a lot of that too.
So let me ask you a question. So when you look for a therapist, do Did you look for somebody who was like most likely relate to you when you said male or female or black, white?
Yeah, so I personally, I already knew that I wanted someone black, so that was right off, because a lot of times the differences in cultural backgrounds causes a disconnect, and so they don't really understand, or they might take something you say to an extreme when it's just our when it's our language, when it's our culture, when it's kind of normalized in our community. So just because this was happening in our community, or your mama might cuss you out or something like that, they might take that to the extreme and not realize that that's kind of like a cultural norm or something like that. So when you think about things like that, to have somebody that don't understand my community or my background, I wouldn't really be able to get certain things off my chest without being worried about it being used in the wrong way or the wrong manner. So that was the first thing, is that I knew I wanted somebody black. And then the second thing was just with a woman. I'm a woman, so it's easy to relate to a woman. Yeah. And I imagine that she can relate to me. So those were easy for me. So what I did personally is I just went on Psychology Today, and then I just filtered out my needs. You can filter out your insurance, you can filter out the sex, you can filter out the race, all of that. So it was just easy to just go ahead and do that, and I found somebody I like currently. So yeah.
Amazing. So just a short story about when I went to go see a therapist, and I was like, man, I ain't trying to do this. This is stupid. But I went to a white woman, and I was like, you are crazy. And then I went to a black woman, and she was okay. But I think it is best to, like, for me, it would have been to find a black male. Like a black male, maybe similar background, that can kind of relate to me. Like, the women were crying and stuff, and I was just like, oh my God. It's like, I'm done.
The counselor was crying?
Yes. Like boo-hooing. And I was like, oh, I don't do this stuff. Like, I'm done. I ain't never coming back. So it was kind of, and I'm not very, like, super emotional person, if y'all can't tell. So it kind of threw me off. And it was just like, I wish I would have found a black male, because it gave me a bad perspective on therapy or counseling. And I'm not saying it's bad or good. I just don't know, because my experiences have been subpar. But thank you for sharing with us and being able to speak up. Anybody else?
Tess.
Yeah. No, he stole my answer. I already knew I did. I was like, me and Tess got the same answer. Well, amazing. If anybody else has any 2 cents on Lil Boosie allowing his kid to do those ratchet things.
About that.
Yeah.
I think the mental health concern should be on the woman accepting to do it.
Hold on. We can't hear you. Say it in the mic.
I said about that situation, wouldn't the mental health aspect be on the woman that agreed to do that act?
Well, she's part of the problem.
Yeah, I would definitely
agree.
Agree.
But,
That's more of a mental issue than
the dad sought out that woman.
Right.
So
that could be like
the
like
woman's a problem too.
Yeah, it's all just, I don't know. I don't know the words to articulate.
Yeah. And I'm not mad at either one of them if it's actually come. I mean, I believe it's true, but he said it himself, but later took it back. Let me reiterate that. But I believe those behaviors are all a result of trauma that they face sometime throughout their life. And the reason why I'm so confident in saying these things, because when working with kids and as a social worker for all these years, every single action they did, it was like I read their reports and I'm like, this is exactly what you did. And they don't even remember it sometimes. And that's what's crazy. It's like some of these kids have been molested, raped, and they have no idea this has happened because they were so young. And it was like something so traumatic, they try to erase it from their brain. But they're doing the same actions on other kids or other people, and they have no recollection of it happening. And they be like, I ain't this and that. Like, you doing that, but they don't know that that's happened to them. So I think that's kind of similar to the Lil Boosie situation. And again, I'm no scientist or no doctor, but it's just my anecdotal experience.
That's a good point, though, Tess. Thanks for bringing it out.
So any other input?
I think that.
Now, let's get the mic.
I mean, I ain't really got much to say, but I think Boosie is crazy for that, for sure. But I mean, he got a right to, you know what I'm saying, do whatever he want to do in his personal life. But I think he crazy just speaking about it publicly. You know what I mean? Like, it make you wonder, like, did it really happen? And he just trying to get it. But even if it didn't really happen and you playing about it, like, you can get your kids taken away, all types of things, lose endorsements. So he crazy to even speak about that publicly. And they edit stuff nowadays, take stuff out. So for it to even come out there, like, he a little nuts, you know what I'm saying? But it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that even if it's not true, why would you risk getting your kids taken away from you? Right. Yeah, it's like, you know, you say you love Tootie Raw so much. It's funny saying his name is Tootie Raw, but yeah, it's like, why would you even, yeah. Nah, it's little baby Tootie Raw. Yeah.
I think we gotta provide context to that, because when that story came out, think about what's going on in the public right now with Boosie, right? All of the gay things that he's like saying and all of that he's projecting onto people. When that story came out, I remember it vividly when he said it. It was because his son was having a party, and I think some gay rumors had came out. So to prove that his son was not gay, he wanted to have that young woman provide oral sex to him. So within that is trauma. So he's afflicting or projecting trauma to that woman to now do that to him. So now she's having trauma, and then his son and his nephew is having trauma, experiencing trauma as well. So it's a greater issue. I don't know if it happened or not. I mean, allegedly this happened, right? But even in that story, I feel like, unbeknownst to us, we project trauma onto each other. We don't even know it. So that's why, like, emotional intelligence is so key, because if you can't recognize or identify that you are experiencing this, then you will never understand it, or you will never even learn how to cope with it. So that's just my 2 cents.
Amazing. And I would agree. It's just trauma he pushed on to the next person. It's really just passed down. But it doesn't make it okay. Yeah. Any other input?
Because I mean, it's like, you know, going back to the reproductive behavior, there's no difference in what he did and to what, you know, fathers, uncles, big cousins, big brothers, grandfathers, you know, when they take you to buy your first pair of condoms.
Yeah.
You know, the expectation is that you do something with them, not make water balloons. You know, and that happens as soon as age 12.
And let me not exclude the women on this, because my mother brought me condoms at a young age. So, and I'm not saying that to try to, you know, like, shame women, but it's like the same thing that men do, women do just as equally.
Right.
And it's like, but I only heard you mention uncles, fathers, grandfathers.
Right.
But
and at the same time, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of things that happened to us growing up, we don't talk about.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack.
So I would like to end this. I would like to thank everybody for coming out today. I know it's Langston's homecoming and y'all so anxious to get to a Langston party or something. But I really do appreciate y'all coming out. And I appreciate our guests. If y'all could give them a round of applause. See, that sounds like a tiny desk, don't it? Yeah, but again, I appreciate all of y'all input. It's been amazing having y'all here. I thank y'all for being vulnerable, sharing information that y'all didn't have to. Ms. King, Vannice, Darrell. And again, thank y'all.
Thank y'all for having us.
Thank you.
And please go support the bar. They kind of want some people to come up there. Please.
I need some food. I'm going to be drinking something.
Manifesting the vibe, yeah, we feeling it. You wasting time, then you killing it. Life Life's too short, so we living it up. Pull up to the party with this drink in my cup. Don't fuck with nobody if that body know. My trust only lies with the crew. Say I'm the truth, bully the hype. This ain't a movie, baby, this is my life. Baby, this is my life.
I've been rapping my whole life. I ain't been rapping that long. Life is short, my nigga.
I couldn't write a verse in jail, couldn't get a vibe there. Surrounded by
Sandwich with the wrong side up.